Hey everyone, welcome in. It's Jeff Trapp here with the Jeff Trapp podcast and the Tax Planning Pros. I'm so glad you've decided to join me today. Woo-wee, we're finally through that S Corporation partnership extension deadline. If you haven't filed those returns, those were due on Monday, September the 16th. And if you haven't filed them, I encourage you to do so quickly because fines and penalties can stack up pretty quickly. We're also past that 9/16 estimated tax deadline for the third quarter as well. Now, some exciting news. Later today, we should find out if the Fed is going to cut interest rates 25 basis points. Are they going to cut it 50 basis points? That'll be really, really interesting to see what that does to the economy, to the stock market, to housing interest rates, as I believe those will, of course, go down and make homes more affordable for buyers. And you might see some homes boom when it comes to refinancing. But I really expect that probably later this year, early next year, when we get those deep, deep interest rate cuts. Well, today, I want to talk to you something about very, very, very important because I want to keep you out of jail. You know, I don't look really great in orange, and you probably don't either. So today, we're going to talk about the beneficial ownership information report. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network has come out with some new guidelines since this last pass. And folks are saying, well, I don't need to file this. There was a lawsuit in Alabama at the beginning of the year, and those businesses were deemed that they didn't have to file these reports. However, we've heard from the court system stating only the business owners who are part of that lawsuit do not have to file those reports. So you need to file this beneficial ownership information report. If you own a business here in the United States, an LLC, C Corp partnership, a disregarded entity, because failure to do so can result in penalties of $500 per day, up to a maximum of $10,000 and 2 years in prison. So it's a big, big deal that you file this information, right? So I want to give you a little bit of background on who needs to file, when you need to file, and into some of the specific changes that have just happened recently, the specific guidance that we've received regarding this information that needs to be filed with the FinCEN division, let's call it. And, it's a big deal to get this done. So here we go. So if you had a business that existed prior to January 1st, 2024, you have until the end of the year to file this information. Now, what if you say, Jeff, well, I had a business, but it was dissolved? Well, that's a great question. So do you still need to file this form? Well, if the business was in existence and not dissolved prior to December 31st, 2023, and then you need to file this form. If you dissolved the business in 2024, or you started a business, then dissolved it in 2024, you do need to file the beneficial ownership information report. So that's one thing that you need to keep in mind. Now, some other things that you need to keep in mind, right? As you go ahead and file this report, we have to determine, when a company ceases to exist. Now, you might say, Jeff, I dissolved my company at the end of 2023. However, I still had the bank account going and, we're closing out a few other matters. Well, unfortunately, because the company continued to exist, you are required to file this beneficial ownership information report. Now, maybe you wound down this company and took care of everything in 2024. You don't need to report anything that, hey, you dissolved the company once you already reported on that company. So a couple other things here that you need to be aware of. Tax ID numbers for a disregarded entity, right? So a disregarded entity would be something like a Schedule C business or Schedule E rental properties. Those are all considered disregarded entities, single member LLCs, husband and wife LLCs, where that information is reported on the individual income tax return. Now, if you don't have an employer identification number, you can go to the IRS website and apply for what they call an SS4, employer identification number. That's the application, the SS4, and get that number and then go ahead and file that information. You can also utilize your social security number when you are filing for that information as well on the beneficial ownership information report. A couple other things that you need to handle when it comes to this report, right? Is when you file this information, they do require that you identify yourself. So you're going to have to upload either one copy of your driver's license or two, a recent passport. Now, if you elect to go the passport route, remember that your passport ID number changes every 10 years when you get a new passport. So what that happens there is that triggers you to go back in and update that owner information and resubmit that new passport number. In most cases, driver's license ID numbers are not going to change, so you don't need to go in and update this on a regular basis. So, like I mentioned before, super important that you comply with this law. Now, what if you say, Jeff, I have formed a new entity in 2024? Then you only have 90 days to comply with this law and get this information filed. Entities formed or businesses that are required to report prior to 2024 have until the end of the year to report this information. So if you haven't done it yet, get online, do it quickly. All you have to do is go to Google, type in beneficial ownership information report. The website will pop up. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. You're really just putting in the owner information for you and your company and your disregarded entities and your LLCs. And once that's done, you don't have to worry about it unless, of course, you move or there's a business address change or an ownership information change. Maybe you sell the business. You need to update all that information. You sell an interest in the business, that type of thing. So if you have questions about that, talk to your attorney, talk to your tax strategist. They can help you out with this. And if you need somebody to talk to or you still have questions, feel free to schedule a call on our calendar and we'll get you going in the right direction. So I hope you found today's episode helpful. If you did, please share it with somebody that might have a disregarded entity, that might have a business, who might need to file this form, because I know I don't look good in orange. They probably don't either, and neither do you. So I hope you have a great day, and hopefully we get some good news on the Fed rate cuts. That's going to be some really, really exciting news. Once again, I'm Jeff Trapp with the Jeff Trapp Podcast and the Tax Planning Pros, and I hope you have a wonderful day.